We predate this creation story, goddess, by a long shot. And my bad for taking so long to get back to you. But the mitochondrial Eve gene, as we know, is inherited by boys and girls, but only passed down by the mother. So it's very clear that the mitochondrial Eve gene has a lot to do with the mitochondria in our cells. Now, our mitochondria is extremely important as they are the powerhouses of the cell, right? But that powerhouse, think of that as the power plant that's creating all the electricity, because that's what they're telling us. Our mitochondria create all the electricity and energy for us, and then it stores it in the form of ATP. Sometimes it also creates GTP for us, which can be used for energy as well. With that being said, all of the energy for the cells come from the mitochondria, all of it. And we're talking about mitochondrial Eve here. Mitochondria also has its own DNA. The mitochondria outside of the nucleus. Now, remember in the last video we were talking about how the DNA and RNA were created in the nucleus and then sent to the ribosomes, or the ribs of Adam. All of that has to do with how this physical body, which is made up of the proteins that were created by the ribosomes, so how this physical body was created from the nucleus, or the nuclei of the cells, of our individual cells. But like I said, we predate this story. I follow the theory that mitochondria came long before the nucleus. Matter of fact, mitochondria are their own entity. Didn't you hear me say they have their own DNA? 37 genes of it, to be exact. Now, we were once prokaryotic, free-living organisms before we became enslaved. Yes, slaves, because mitochondria are known as the first slaves. Don't believe me? Let me look it up for you. Mitochondria originated by permanent enslavement of purple non-sulfur bacteria. Mitochondria are known as the first known slaves because they originated from the permanent enslavement of purple non-sulfur bacteria by a eukaryotic cell through a process called endosymbiosis. Now, some of the mitochondria's DNA, its original DNA, it's been enslaved over into the nucleus, and that's what the nucleus is even using to create DNA, RNA, and things to send it out into the ribosomes to create these flesh bodies made of proteins. And the way that the mitochondria's DNA get over to the nucleus is by way of the complex protein import machinery, like it says here. These endosymbionts became organelles through the origin of complex protein import machinery. That import machinery they're talking about is how the DNA goes from the mitochondria and it's siphoned into the nucleus to do work for the nucleus and create over there, when it was originally using all of its own energy and not sourcing it out to the nucleus. And another thing, the mother gene, bars. But if you know what the mother gene is, and if you don't, go ahead and look it up. I typed in mother gene and it brings up MTHFR, which is a gene that some people have toggled on and some people have toggled off. But this gene, when it is not properly working, creates mitochondrial dysfunction, which about most diseases can fall into that category, from diabetes to autism. Have to do with mitochondrial dysfunction. And that's because the mitochondria is not whole. It's branched off in the nucleus doing other things and just not even properly working because it's not in its best conditions anyway. Y'all see what I'm saying? All of this goes back to the mitochondrial Eve gene. And we know where that originates from by following its haplotype. Anyway, I hope that somewhat answered your question. I guess to sum it up, I would say we colored people, aka purple non-sulfur bacteria, became enslaved by the nucleus. And that last story was telling how we got here by way of the nucleus, but we predate the nucleus as original mitochondria, free living organisms. Gratitude and healing.